What is up, everyone? I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. Today, guys, I actually want to talk about something a bit different. I want to talk about the way I'm testing champions. I want to talk about fusions. Which champion is good? Which champion is bad? How I'm actually weighing all of these things to basically make my own decision on a champion. I'm seeing it every now and then. Skratch, again, you got this champion wrong. Skratch, what are you talking about? I've seen 4 other videos and the champion is actually amazing. The champion hits hard, etc. So I kind of like want to walk you basically through my process and kind of like explain you everything that I'm doing, just to kind of like make it a bit more clear in case if you guys haven't understood the whole testing system, basically, right? Before we get to that, because we do have some news, guys, I just quickly want to make you aware, nothing too crazy. Together with the Fusion, right, they tend to do this type of events like 2x on some of the gears. So we're going to put this on the screen right here. Monday, we have 2x on a speed. Thursday, we have 2x on cursed. And then we have on Monday, the 12th, we have a 2x on Shadowkin accessories. And on 15th, Thursday, we're going to have a 2x on a Savage gear, right? So, leaving all that on the side, talking about the new Fusion champion, right? That's going to be the new Shadowkin. I released a video on the champion, I think yesterday, actually, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, how am I testing champions? What's my process? Basically, when I'm building champions, guys, I'm trying to basically create a threshold in terms of what builds I'm putting on all of the champions that I'm testing. So like that, at least in my mind, if I'm not putting it on a paper, I can actually have a better understanding. Okay, this champion is mid-tier. This champion, wow, he's doing amazing damage. This champion kind of sucks. He doesn't deal good damage, etc. Right? Now, one thing that I do want to mention as well is that every single account is unique. Okay, every single account can benefit from different champions. One thing that I don't tend to kind of like value a lot is basically champions that only help through progression. The reason for it is because 99% of the champions that we have in the game will help pretty much every account through progression. But once you are past that phase, some of the champions become more irrelevant. And in the end, you're not really going to have a specific place where you're going to use them and be like, wow, this champion is amazing in this content, right? Because it's gonna end up sitting in the vault together with a bunch of other champions that nobody tends to kind of like use because they're not that powerful in the end game. So the main thing that I'm really valuing on a champion when I'm doing a guide, when I'm reviewing a champion, is basically having that long shelf life, okay? Having longevity in the end game, because that's a champion that is actually worth investing in. A champion that you're not going to use him only for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Is a champion that you're going to use him for a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe for the entire duration of you playing Raid Shadow Legends. So that is the most important aspect when I'm reviewing a champion. Then, when we are talking about damage dealers, to be honest, most of the fusions tend to be damage dealers, right? I feel like probably around 70% of the fusions are damage dealers. So when you get a damage dealer, if the champion is just kind of like average, is not something good. Yes, you can use the champion in Faction Wars. Yes, you can use the champion in Curse City in some cases. But I feel like, in my opinion, that's just not enough. Now, coming back to the part when I'm building champions. One of the main things that I kind of like prioritize, as I've mentioned, is to have a bit of a threshold in terms of what builds I'm giving my champions. I'm trying to test them always on the same stage, doing multiple runs to kind of like get some form of a result from there. Even though I'm not putting them all in a spreadsheet and all that, I'm just not that type of a guy, right? I do have an idea in my mind, okay, this champion is going to be good. So that's why I tend to basically build most of the champions with slightly crazier stats than most people can actually basically do on their accounts, right? Sometimes it's not very relatable because I have higher stats on my champions. One of the things as well is that no matter how I'm going to build the champion, if I'm going to build him with 4,000 attack, 200 crit damage, somebody else will come and say, well, this build is not for me. Either this build is too strong for my account, either this build is too weak for my account. If I'm going to build him with 6,000 attack, 250 crit damage, is going to be the exact same story. So the point here is that no matter how I'm going to build a champion, how much attack and crit damage I'm going to put on a champion, is just not going to be relatable for every single player out there. So the reason I'm doing it as I'm doing it with higher stats is basically to relate to my own account, to understand that threshold that the champion is good, mid-tier, or bad, right? Then, moving on to the next thing. How am I testing champions? I tend to go pretty simple, right? In most cases, I go in the Dragon's Lair. Sometimes I go on stage 10. And I tend to basically bring in a defense down champion, right? So, for example, I tend to bring in Lydia because that's a champion that most of the people have from Faction Wars. Then I'm going to bring in the damage dealer. And I'm going to see if that works good enough. In some cases, the champion will require increased attack, increased defense, especially if it's not a HP-based champion. So I'm going to bring in an Arbiter, I'm going to bring in a Sifi or a different champion that will give me the buffs that I need in order to basically enhance the damage furthermore. But in no case I'm going to basically bring in Badelkazar, Gerbtuk, Feral, and basically do all of those crazy things that will never occur in real life playing the game. Like, I can guarantee you that in today's meta, you're not going to have a team built with all of those champions, okay? Unless you're a Mega Kraken and you're going to one-shot bosses. So if we're gonna go in the Phantom Shogun, yes, I can actually make a crazy team with Little Miss Annie. I can basically bring in a few champions that will just boost the damage. So I can bring in a Feral, I can bring in either a Bad Ale, either a Gerbtuk, for example, an increased attack champion like a Shuzan, and there are strats that will enable me to basically one-shot the boss, okay? Now, this is something that only the super elite can actually do. Even myself, I cannot do it, okay? I don't have the blessings on all of the champions. Maybe now with the Cat's Gaze and all that, I can do it. The point is, this is just something to put up a show, right? To enhance the damage and to test maximum damage, right? That's something that I don't tend to do because it's not realistic on a day-to-day basis, right? You're just not going to use a team like that in pretty much any of the content. So that's why I'm not doing it like that. When we are talking about blessings, why am I not using blessings when I'm testing champions? Why am I not using the Cat's Gaze? 90% of the player base should have the Cat's Gaze. They gave 2 of them guaranteed, right? Well, let me just quickly explain you that part as well. In my opinion, we have a bunch of champions. Every single account has a bunch of champions. Now, moving relics from champion to champion is very expensive. If I consider it very expensive, that does pretty much all of the endgame content without missing anything, and I still think it's very expensive to move the relic left and right from champion to champion. I don't want to imagine what the regular players that don't push all of the endgame content on daily basis will think about the cost to swap relics. Then, you have tons of different champions in the game, okay? I don't think every single damage dealer in the game is worthy of using the Cat's Gaze, right? The Cat's Gaze is enhancing every single champion. It does not matter how bad he is as a damage dealer. Using the Cat's Gaze on a damage dealer, it will enhance the damage. So I could use the Cat's Gaze on a common champion, a rare champion, and see crazy numbers, okay? Because the Cat's Gaze is extremely powerful. That's why I've told you guys plenty of times before, even if you have to skip the freaking fusion, go and get the Cat's Gaze. It's going to be more impactful on your account than anything else. Think about having a 6-star Crushing Grand, more or less, that's portable. You can move it from champion to champion. Now, I'm a whale. I've done tons of content. I've pretty much tried to get all of the materials that we had for the events when the Cat's Gaze was in the game as a reward, right? And with all of my summons, I ended up with 0 Cat's Gaze. The only Cat's Gaze that I have are basically the 2 that they gave guaranteed in events. So that means that I can just equip it on all of my damage dealers and be like, oh my god, they all do crazy damage. No, and that's pretty much the same situation for the majority of you guys. I don't want to enhance the damage on a champion with relics, giving them 6-star crushing grands or whatever else we might have available, just to boost their damage, to make them look like extremely spectacular. And then when you guys get to play the champions, you're going to be like, well, this champion is underwhelming. This champion doesn't really do any damage compared to what I've seen in Skratch's video, for example, right? So I don't want to basically, I wouldn't necessarily say deceive you guys in a way like this, right? But I feel like it's just not the right way to do it. At least from my point of view. Everybody else can do whatever they want. This is just my way of doing things. And I don't think that enhancing every champion that I'm testing with a relic is the right thing to do. Relics are new to the game in a way or another. They're very hard to come by. The Cat's Gaze most likely will never make a return, or if it will make a return in the future, great. If not, a lot of you guys that started playing for the last few months will never have the relic, or you won't have the relic available. So if I'm using this relic on my tests as an example, you guys will be like, well, am I ever gonna get a relic? That's now relatable. Plus, this boosts the damage by a lot, okay? So that's why I don't like to use basically relics when I'm testing champions. Maybe in 1 year from now, when they're more common and stuff, maybe I'm gonna start implementing them in. Even when I'm testing them with souls, because we do get souls on the test server, right? First, I use them without the soul, or without actually activating the soul, so I'm not gaining all of these additional stats. Then I'm going to put the blessing on for kind of like a second round on the testing to see how much of a difference it makes. Like with the fusion the other day, right? Without the blessing, he was doing like 200k damage with the A3. I've put a blessing on and bang, all of a sudden the damage almost doubled, right? So I like to basically show it in both ways, right? Sometimes I even do it without actually skilling up the champions, because getting the books is pretty hard. Getting the soul is very hard, even though they're doing events and stuff. Not everybody affords to save so many resources to basically get a fusion and the soul, get the next fusion, get the soul, etc. So every now and then people will have to kind of like make a break, and they won't be able to accumulate enough resources to basically get all of those all of the things done to basically get a soul and every single fusion champion and stuff. So that's basically why I'm not doing it like that. I like to make it pretty simple. Basically, what the mother nature gave to the champion. If the multipliers are good, we're going to see good damage. If the multipliers are bad, we're not going to see good damage. So I don't like to enhance those champions with bad L, etc., because it's pointless. Now, there are a lot of epic champions that deal crazy good damage. And for example, yesterday I've tested the fusion with a Magnar. Yes, the fusion was doing more damage than a Magnar, but not by a huge amount or anything like that. And if I was going to bring in a Whisper versus the Chimera, for example, if I was going to bring in an Alika versus that champion in the Hydra, I mean, Alika Whisper was easily going to do 2, 3, 4, 5x more damage than the fusion champion. And they're epic champions without relics, with pretty much similar stats. Even though they're attack-based champions, yes, you can enhance a bit their damage and all that with an increased attack. Another thing to keep in mind is that when I'm doing tests in Hydra, for example, area bonuses, my Great Hall is fully maxed in the Hydra clan boss. So I'm already ignoring 20% of the target's defense from here. Then I have a Savage set. Then a champion might have some ignore defense in their skill. Like the fusion champion had an ignore 50% of the target's defense. He had Helm Smasher. So adding all that up, it will get to ignore all of the defense on the target, right? And if you see with the build that I had on 1.5 million damage on the Hydra with the best skill, ignoring defense, having Feral in the team that enhances the damage by 20%, having protection on 2 champions that will enhance the damage by an additional 15 to 25% depending on how many buffs I have on. Not to mention having Lydia as well with a feral set, which will enhance the damage by another 10, 15%, 20% depending on what head we're targeting. 1.5 is shit, pardon my French, okay? Like, that's not good damage considering all of the things that I've just mentioned, right? So, personally, I don't get anything if people do fusions, if people don't do fusions. I couldn't care less, personally, right? One of the main things that I'm trying to basically show in the videos is this champion worth it for your account, right? That should basically kind of like give you an idea. Okay, I have these damage dealers. As I've mentioned, every account is unique. I cannot foresee what champions everybody has on their account. But every now and then, even a trashy champion, mid-tier champion, can be decent for some of you guys. As I've mentioned, maybe in Faction Wars, maybe in some content where you're lacking, maybe you're lacking the Spirit Affinity or Magic Affinity or whatever else we might have going on at the moment when we are testing the champions, right? So I'm just basically trying to show you what the champion can do. Then you can decide if the champion is worth it for you or is not. I know a lot of people are like, well, Plarium is paying these guys to basically promote the fusions. To be honest with you guys, Plarium is literally paying every single other creator that is not part of the CC program. So every other creator out there that is doing raid content and is not part of the official Plarium content creator is getting paid. We are not getting paid, on the other hand, okay? So just to make that clear, we're not getting paid to push fusions and all that crap that others are saying. Maybe if I was on the other side and I was not creating content to actually know all these things, I was probably gonna be like that person as well, saying, well, these guys are definitely getting paid, you know? But leaving all that on the side. Another thing with fusion champions, and this is not throwing shade at anyone because I'm doing it myself as well sometimes. If a champion is bad, so basically we have, Plarium announces a fusion, we basically show you the kit, we talk about the fusion. If that fusion is trash, people have a super low interest on that fusion. So nobody's really gonna get good views on the videos when we're showcasing the fusion champion, unless we're clickbaiting. As I've mentioned, not throwing shade at anyone, because I'm doing it as well sometimes too. So the best titles are like, oh my god, this champion shocked me. I'm surprised. This champion impressed me. I was wrong. So basically you do this to grab the attention, right? As I've mentioned, I'm doing it sometimes as well. Guilty as charged. Not throwing shade. I'm just kind of like making you aware, but the majority of you guys already know this. So in order to basically generate some views on something that we already know that is not going to generate views, basically we have to to use whatever weapons we have at our disposal, right? If we're gonna put, well, this champion is shit, nobody's really gonna click on it because, well, we already know that. Skratch, tell us something new. But if we twist it around and we're trying to make it look like something else in some cases, it's going to perform better, right? So I just kind of like wanted to basically touch points on this topic. It doesn't really bother me when people are saying like, well, Skratch, you got this champion wrong, Skratch, you're an idiot, or whatever. It's just that some of you guys that have no idea what's happening might misunderstand the whole thing, and you might make a mistake based on it. Maybe you're gonna be like, well, I'm gonna skip this fusion because these guys in the comments are saying that Skratch is stupid, and the champion is actually amazing, or the champion is actually bad. And this happens in both of the situations. Every time we have a good fusion, and I repeat, every single time, it doesn't matter if it was Armans, Newt, Roto, Stormin, etc. And this has been happening for the last 5-6 years since they've implemented the fusions in the game. Every single time there's somebody complaining that a good fusion is trash. Every single time there's somebody saying that a bad fusion is amazing. So this is just something normal. It's just kind of like for you guys to try and make your own decision. Try to don't get influenced by other things. Just try to kind of like look at the things as they are. Good damage, good support, bad support. Do I need this champion on my account? Will this champion really do anything on my account? Now, when we're talking about Faction Wars, not every single champion from every faction is going to be helpful, right? Especially when we're talking about epics, most of the legendaries will be helpful in faction wars, right? Regardless if they need to deal damage, to support, to heal, to revive. I feel like we are at a point in the game right now where we have so many champions compared to what we had 5 years ago when they introduced faction wars, that most of them will be helpful, at least up to a specific point, right? So you don't necessarily need to weigh all of the decision if you fuse a champion or not, thinking of faction wars, right? Because as I've mentioned, if you're really lacking champions in that faction, then yeah, it's not bad to get it. One of the other things that are really helpful in a way or another with fusion champions, you're getting a guaranteed champion. And especially if you don't have your faction guardians maxed, getting one fusion champion done with the idea that most likely you're going to summon him after. Let's be honest, 90% of the champions that we are summoning are fusion champions. That will help you with your faction guardians, okay? So that is another thing that you should kind of like keep in mind when you're deciding if you're going for a fusion or you're skipping it, you know? It can happen that you're never going to summon that champion again, but at least you know that you tried, you know? At least you know that you tried to get that done. Either way, hopefully I'm not talking too much nonsense in here, guys. I just wanted to kind of like make a few things clear, to kind of like explain you guys my entire process on how I'm basically doing my testing on champions, why I'm using the gear that I'm using, why I'm not using relics, why I'm not boosting their damage with Battle Khazar and other champions that enhance the damage, because in my opinion, that's not realistic. It's not something that we're going to use in any of the teams on daily basis. Every now and then, yes, you're going to have a Gerbtak in a Hydra team, you're going to have a Feral in a team, maybe you're going to have a Battle in one of the teams as well, but it's very unlikely for you to use 2 or 3 of them together in any of the content in today's meta, right? So, that being said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you understood basically what's the whole idea with the way I'm testing champions and stuff. As usual, appreciate all of you guys watching. And if you enjoyed the content, smash a like, subscribe to the channel, do me a solid, drop a comment, help with that YouTube algorithm. And if you would like to see any specific things when I'm doing my testing on champions, let me know in the comments down below. Much love, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.